Hey guys, this is Carl, Oliver, and Austin, and we're going to bring you a solution to the knapsack problem. The knapsack problem essentially asks how many different types of items can you fit into a container of a certain size, a finite size, given that these items each take up varying amounts of space and they are valued at varying amounts. So we're asking, it's an optimization problem that we're going to solve using some very logical induction and the facets of dynamic programming, which we'll get into in just a second. Let's get into the pseudocode real quick. Right here we have two nested for loops. So we have from j equal to 1 to n and I equal to 1 to m. So right off the bat we see, oh, okay, this is going to probably take at worst n times m. So we're looking at a polynomial big O of n. Now, right here, the n's correspond to the different types of items. Now, in our example, we're going to really get into it and see what I mean by, I equal to 1 corresponding to putting items of type A into a bag, and then j equal to 2 corresponding to putting items of type A and B into a bag. And we'll get into that. This for loop is from I equal to m corresponding to some arbitrary limit on the size of the knapsack, right? So essentially, we're going to be looking at an array from index I to m that is holding, each array element is holding a knapsack of size whatever I is, right? So the array at index 10 is holding a knapsack of size 10. And we're going to be looking at what can we put into this knapsack of size 10 such that my value is maximized, given my restriction on weight. Now, right here, we look at this if statement. This is only doing, okay, this asks, is my backpack even big enough to accommodate the smallest item, right? If not, okay, cool, move on. We don't care about a knapsack that can't hold anything that we're dealing with, so that just makes everything a little quicker. Now, this if statement essentially asks, okay, now that my knapsack can actually accommodate something, if I add this something into it, right, will the value that it now gets, that now that I added something, will that value exceed the value of what was there previous? And this seems a little bit sort of mysterious because we haven't even added anything to it, right? We just have these empty knapsacks with nothing in them, right? So when you get to a point where, oh, now I have an empty knapsack that can actually fit something, boom, of course you're going to add something to it, right? So obviously this if statement is satisfied, and we actually add it here, right? We say, okay, at this array, at this knapsack, we're going to go ahead and toss in the item, right? That's worth 3. And it corresponds to right here. And this right here is really important because this code right here, because this is where you add the item, right? So you look at the cost of, or what was in the knapsack previous to where you're adding. And this is where we start to be exposed to this inductive reasoning, right? We say, oh, well, I had a knapsack of size, 1. I couldn't really fit anything there, so that it had no value, but now I can add a value to it, so now it's going to cost me 3. And as we continue to sort of move up this staircase, we're going to understand how this all builds up onto each other, right? And after we actually add the thing into the knapsack, right? We're going to go ahead and store that added item into its own array, right? Into this array known as best, so that we call best, right? Now I'm going to show you pictorially what this all means, and we're going to make some assumptions to make everything nice and easy, right? Now, right here, we have 5 different types of items, right? Varying sizes, varying value. We're going to call them A, B, C, D, E, right? Now, we see here that the items have weights to them. They take up a certain amount of space, right? 3, 4, 7, 8, 9. But they're all worth different things, right? So you have to figure out, okay, given this restriction right here, this is where you're restricted in terms of size, right? But they're worth this amount. What different types of combinations of these items will give me my maximum given a knapsack of size whatever. We're going to go ahead and work with size 17. So our n is going to be equal, our m is going to be equal to 17. And of course, n is going to be equal to 5, corresponding to 5 different types of objects. And just as I mentioned before, this for loop right here, we're just going to answer, okay, I equal to 1, we're adding only objects of type A, I equal 2, AB, I equal 3, ABC, so on and so forth. So you get to 5, it's A, B, C, D, E. Right. Now, we're going to go ahead and look at a stack trace of all this logic to see if we can help clear up what I've been saying here. Now, right here, like I said, we're going to go through the whole entire different types of objects, the combinations of objects, right? So it just starts off nice and easy, right? You only have A's to choose from. It's not really a combinatorial problem in the very beginning. You just say, okay, our knapsack will start here. It's finally big enough to hold something, so we toss in an A, right? A takes up size 3. Oh, now this knapsack is worth 4 because it has a 3 in it. Or excuse me, it has a thing of size 3 in it, value 4. Now, as we move along, as our knapsack size gets bigger and bigger, so 4 and 5, they can't really accommodate anything, so we can't add anything to it, so just keep moving. You just say, okay, knapsack of size 4, the only thing I can add is 3, so the best thing to add is A. So our knapsack of size 4 is worth 4 because you can only put one thing in it, just like 3. It gets more interesting when you say, okay, now our knapsack can accommodate an additional item. It can accommodate another 3, another thing of size 3. So we ask, all right, right here, we ask, what can we add to this knapsack right here, given that a knapsack of size 3 can hold 4? That's where I mentioned this is very important. This essentially says, okay, we're looking at this, and this is our question, this is what we're trying to ask, right? But we already figured out, this is what we're asking, I'm sorry. But we already figured out what the best choice for 3 is, right? That corresponds to where my thumb is. This is the minus sign right here, we're going back to 3, where my index finger is. And we said, oh, we already answered this, so the best thing to add to this knapsack of size 6 to maximize my amount is just another A. It's just this thing right here, again, my thumb here, and my index finger here, this thing plus the thing that I can add. And you keep following that logic, right? Again, 7, 8, you can't hold anything more until you get to 9, you can hold another A, right? And you just keep following that logic over and over and over until you get to your maximum size, 17 in our case, and you end up with, oh, if my knapsack is of size 17, the most valuable it'll ever be is 20, right? It can only accommodate 5 A's because it's 17. The size will be 15, right? The size of all of these 5 A's, and it'll amount to 20, right? Now things get a little more complicated when you go to j equal to 2, because now you're dealing with 2 different types of objects. But again, it's the same inductive reasoning, right? You start from your base, boom. What can I add to this array or this knapsack of size 4? And you just keep building up, right? You start from the very first thing to accommodate, boom, 4. But now, oh, our knapsack got bigger. Oh, but look, now it can accommodate a 4, right? So I can add this thing of size 4, and it's worth more than 3, which is worth 4. And that's what I'm going to do. In order to maximize my value for this knapsack of size 4, I'm going to go ahead and add B. And the same thing follows for knapsack of size 5. It can accommodate a 4, and you'd rather have 4, which is worth 5, and over a 3, which is worth 4, right? Now, again, when we look at a knapsack of size 6, you think, oh, wait a minute. What can I add to this? You're asking, what can I add to this knapsack to make it efficient, to maximize my take? You have to go back. You have to go back with this for loop right here, right around here, and you say, well, I already answered the question of what the best thing to choose here for, so I just have to add another a to it, right? That's the only thing I can add, so I'm going to add it. Now it gets to, but now our knapsack can accommodate not only an additional 3, but it can accommodate an additional 4, right? So you ask, oh, well, what can I add to this knapsack? Again, you're asking the problem previously. What can I add to this knapsack right here, right? A takes up 3, size 3. So I'm left with, right here, 7 minus 3. I'm left with 4, size 4. So I can add 3 or a 4. But 4 is worth more. So in order to maximize my knapsack of size 7, I'll go right here so we can follow along. Knapsack size 7, right here. The only thing that I can add that is even better than 8 is, boom, 4. Add a 4. Now we have 9. And essentially, it keeps boiled down to the same thing, right? You simply ask, okay, I already know what the previous answer is, right? That was your base. You already asked, what can I add to this array, this knapsack? Now, what can I add to it additionally, given that I have more space? And then, as we go on to j equals 3 and 4 and 5, the question just gets a little more complicated. You're just asking another question. You're saying, okay, what can I add to this knapsack to make it more efficient, right? So you made your knapsack efficient in the base, and now you're asking, what can I add to this base, so like recursively, inductively, such that it'll maximize my take. But now, as you go through these 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, you're asking additionally, oh, now that I have another choice of stuff to put in there, like a different type of stuff, can I put something that weighs more? And usually the answer will be answered based, again, off of what you asked previously, which you stored right here. That's the purpose of the best arrays. You already said, oh, well, the best thing to add to knapsack of size 4 is that, so just add something additionally to that, and then you get your answer. And this is the important facet of dynamic programming that I was talking about, is that the whole storing of information, so you can access it when you ask another question, is right here built in, right? You asked, oh, what can I add to this array of this knapsack right here, given that I already know the answer to this, and it'll tell you the answer to that, which again we can wrap up and say, boom, given a knapsack of size 17, we are only ever going to get a maximum of 24, given, again, these constraints, right? Now, the way we can actually figure out what the subset, what is actually in this knapsack of size 17 that's worth 24, we're going to take even further advantage of the best array, right? And I keep emphasizing this inductive logic because that's where the heart of the problem is. That's what allows us to keep this at big O of n times n. Because when you take advantage of the best array, you're saying, oh, okay, what's the best thing to add to my knapsack of size 17, given the fact that I answered what's best to add to these other knapsacks, right? This combination of efficient storage, this efficient combinations that will make up this final efficient answer, right? And you just follow the chain. You say, okay, the best thing to add to my knapsack of size 17 is a C, right? The best thing, because, and I know that because the best thing to add to my knapsack of size 10 is C, and I know that because the best thing to add to my knapsack, and this is the base, like I said, the best thing to add to my knapsack of size 3 is A. So you end up, that's your base. You essentially go from the bottom up in the code, and then to answer the question, oh, what's the subset, you go backwards. And then you get this CCA right here. And this operation itself only takes big O of n at the very worst. So thinking of big O of n for the entire code, you know that O of n which would be O of n times n, definitely dominates O of n. So we have a polynomial time approximation, or time big O of n, I should say. And well, that's the answer to the knapsack problem. Thanks for listening, guys.